Hi, welcome to the first episode of Homemade Built for Adventure. This is where we share with you all our friends' lockdown videos, what the people have been building in their sheds throughout the pandemic. So here I am sitting outside my shed. Sadly the pink Porsche doesn't want to work at the moment, so I can't fettle it because it won't actually start. So I'm having something done about that. Anyway, so I'm going to hand over straight away to the first of our lockdown videos, which is Craig, and he's spent last year building a van that he can escape in, along with a couple of custom motorbikes. Now here's Craig.
Hi, I'm Craig and welcome to my lockdown project video. I'm going to take you a little bit around what I've been up to during lockdown, which includes this thing here, Snafu. Let's take a walk around, I'll show you the van. Snafu started life as a normal Mercedes long wheelbase Sprinter, and then over lockdown I kind of got a bit carried away and turned it into a camper van. So I created Snafu to let me get out on the road and explore in the UK, and then explore further into Europe. Inside, the van has a fully functioning kitchen, full-time double bed, shower and chemical toilet, lots of storage for life on the road, and the space can be converted to a workspace when needed. But more interesting is what's in the back. Around the back, I have my two little Hondas to get me about when I arrive at my destination. This pushes up, and then I can pull them all out. My two Honda CD200s were bought as a lighter alternative to my old BSA. These bikes are super light and very small, meaning they're easy to wheel in and out of the back. The first is Chips, a grand total of £200. It was sold as spares, but a little clean up and she started right away. I've also added my own artistic touch to the tank. Spinach was a little more money and is built to accommodate two people pillioning. The CD200s sound great and are surprisingly nippy, but mainly they're just great fun to ride, reminding me not to take life too seriously.
This has been my really quick introduction to my lockdown project. Thanks for listening.
So what clever people we know. I wish I was that handy. Okay, so next up is a friend, Chip. I met Chip on doing the Carrera Panamericana when I did it in 2011. And he's another crazy, he's got lots of toys. And he's been building a 1965 Sunbeam Tiger. So over to Chip.
Hello, I'm Chip Fudge. We're here today to highlight a very special car, the 1965 Sunbeam Monster Tiger. Arguably one of the top 5 Sunbeam Tigers ever built, the driveline, aluminum hood, and top were stripped from the Le Mans Sunbeam Lister Tigers after they had mechanical failure in 1964. The 1965 season saw this Tiger, as it was known as the Monster Tiger, because of its 260 cubic inch engine and 289 heads, which produced over 300 horsepower. This car was ferociously fast. It narrowly missed winning the Autosport Championship of 1966, finishing second. It was campaigned by the Alan Fraser Racing Team and driven by the very accomplished Bernard Unit from the UK and Chicho Reyes from Scotland. I purchased the car from the previous owner, who owned it for 38 years, and found it in the Canary Islands, brought it back to the US to have it completely restored. This car ran at Goodwood in 2008. I can attest to how ferociously fast this car is, as we raced it in Houston with the CVAR group just a few weekends ago. It qualified at the top of the grid, but we broke an axle during the first race. You know it's a famous car when they make their own model car after it.
Thanks for that, Chip. What a cool workshop that is as well. So next up is a man who raced touring cars in the 80s, Patrick Watts. And a very capable driver and also a very capable engineer. Patrick's always got something in build and they're always superb quality when they come out of his workshop. Anyway, so he sent us a little tour of what they've got going on at the moment, which is very cool.
So I'm Patrick Watts, and what did I do during the lockdown? Well, as you can see, I've got a very nice toy shop here and I've got a lot of projects on. And I'll walk you through. We've got a Sunbeam Tiger here, peaking to Paris car. Got the Capri, getting ready for Legends Donington. A couple of Cortinas here. And then we have a trio of Metro Turbos, historic Mini, Peugeot 405, Super Tourer, actually my Total car from 1994. And this is the car that occupied quite a bit of the lockdown as Pam and I took a 2-week holiday, towed a trailer all the way down to Vienna and bought this car. It's been raced in Austria extensively. It won the Brno 6-hour race in 1963. It's a semi-works car, A-frame. And as we went down through Europe, borders were closing behind us, literally closing behind us. There was no one on the road. Lockdown was very, very serious. This was the time when everybody used to sort of wash their Amazon boxes and things as they arrived, and everybody very paranoid. We made it down to Vienna. We loaded up the car, we stayed at empty hotels on the way back, and this is the basis of a fantastic project to restore this back to original and FIA and a very competitive touring car to race in Legends races and all sorts. Thank you.
So next up, we've got another race car, and this is the rather beautiful Allard J2 of Tony Bianchi, who's been slowly restoring the car throughout lockdown. It's not totally finished yet, but it's well underway, and he gives us a little tour of where he's up to.
The lockdown's been pretty useful to me. It's enabled me to recommission the Allard J2X that I've had for the last 4 or 5 years. It's an interesting car. It's one of 2 that were produced by the Allard factory for Le Mans in 1952. This one's the prototype. The other no longer exists. It was driven by Jack Fairman and Sidney Allard. They achieved 13 hours or approximately that before having oil pressure problems and a bearing failure, probably due to oil shortage. It got up to 5th place and did something over 155 miles an hour down the Mulsanne Straight, which was allegedly the fastest car that year. It came back to the UK, a Cadillac engine was fitted, and it was then sold to a guy in upstate New York. He raced it for a couple of years and then bought a D-type Jag, and the Allard really went to ground. It was acquired in 2010 by JD Classics, who brought it to the UK and sold it to a client of theirs. And he did a few meetings with it, including the Le Mans Classic. And then I acquired it in 2015 at Le Mans. We were supporting a client's car, and it was offered to me there, and I managed to get my hands on it, or the car found me and was looking for a willing slave. And since then, I replaced the Cadillac engine with the correct Chrysler, made a gearbox for it, de-Americanized it a bit, and it's coming on. It's pretty much there. By July, August, I think we'll probably be on the circuit with it. So looking forward to it. And but the slave is worn out.
Okay, here we are. It's the 26th of May. Here she is. Here's the old
J2X is all painted now, sitting in Lim Historics, who worked magic on it with their nice artwork. So it's back to its original colour. It's got its nice original old seats back in it, and looking really good. There we are. How about that?
Next up is Rob Dixon. Now, I met him very recently. He's an ex-classic enduro racer. He's now teaching people to off-roading skills up in Shropshire. Anyway, Rob is building a Lancia rally car, which is very cool. Anyway, I'll let him explain because yeah, he's got a little bit of work to do and he's got to do it fast.
Hello, I'm Rob Dixon and this is my 1974 Lancia Fulvia, which I've been restoring now for what seems like years. And after glacial progress on the project, a couple of months ago my son spoke to me and said, "Dad, can you lend me the car for a wedding?" So I've got 8 weeks to finish it, so no pressure then, and I've got a bit of work to do. So we've got to have a look around the shell. The car's not in bad condition, but the engine was a bit tired, so I decided to give it an overhaul. If you come around here, this is the old engine. So that's what came out of it, and we've got 8 weeks to finish it. Now, just in case you think I'm being delusional about timescale, come into the garage and I'll show you something. So, here's one I made earlier, as they used to say. So over the years, I've been collecting bits like engines and subframe and gearboxes, and I've amassed enough parts to build a full Group 4 spec engine for the Lancia. It was screwed together by my good friend Pip Hyam, who's better known for his work with Suzuki competition bikes. And Pip built with this lovely motor, which hopefully will be in the Lancia in about 4 weeks' time. It's got all the usual goodies like high compression pistons and worked cams, big valves, that kind of stuff. And I'm hoping it's going to put out something like about 130 horsepower. We've got some aluminium panels for the car, doors, boot and bonnet, and I'm hoping when it's finished it's going to weigh about 890 kilos, which should make it reasonably lively. Anyway, I've got a wedding to get ready for, so I can't stand here gassing all day. See ya!
Okay, right, we're going back to Patrick Watts now, who has got another project to share with us, which is a van. Mercedes Sprint race van, very cool.
Right, project lockdown. Number one, don't shave, look a bit scruffy, eat a lot of garlic because social distancing lets you eat lots of garlic. One thing I did in the lockdown was convert this Merc here, which was an old van, into a race van, and alloys, uprated suspension, and convert it into a race van. You've got sitting down stuff at the back here, fold down seats, makes to a double bed. We've got overhead lockers made out of 25-litre race fuel cans. We've got TV. We've got flick down drying rack for crash helmets. We've got sink, fridge, three-way fridge, fixed toolbox with all the bits and pieces in it. And these trolleys, tyres and boxes, they wheel out under the awning, which has got a pull-out awning, and then that turns into driver changing room. This is a test van, really. We'll have it at the race circuits, and it's got everything in it. It's got 240 volt, 12 volt. It's got gas, it's got water, it's got waste, it's got solar heating, it's got flashy little switches all over it. It's even got a safe for putting your mobile phone in. That's the 240 switchboard. All carpeted out on the sides, insulated, tinted windows throughout. Yeah, that was a nice little project for the lockdown. Oh, and uprated to 190 horsepower by chipping it. So it actually goes pretty quick as well. And this will be the tow vehicle to take a 2-ton trailer, because it's derated. Everything's made out of aluminium. I fabricated all these bits out of aluminium, and they all sort of fold and fold out. Yeah, that's one thing I had to do.
Finally, our final story of today is very local to here in Bristol. David Smithies, who has picked up a Healey 3000 rud speed that he used to own when he was 18, and he's restoring it for the second time round, which is fascinating. And he shared with me some of the pictures and the story of the car when he owned it the first time round, and he shows me the finished car and having restored it for the second time.
Story of 96 FYY Austin Healey 3000 Mark 1 rud speed. Now, when I was in my very late teens, early 20s, I saw this car at the bottom of Egerton Road, the famous John Chatham place where he used to work, and it was a wreck. And I looked at the car. I didn't, I was aspiring to have a 3000 at the time. I previously had a Healey 100, and it suddenly disappeared off his forecourt. And I asked John some weeks later where it had gone to, and it was owned by a chap at Blagdon Motors, which no longer exists, by Blagdon Lake, on the hill above Blagdon Lake in Blagdon. So I went to see him, and eventually I bought the car as a wreck in the bottom of his field, no upholstery in it, but the engine, all the running gear was there, for the princely sum of £150, which at that time was a lot of money. We're talking about the late 60s now. I bought it, and then over the period of 2 or 3 years, I restored the car and got it road registered. Shortly after that, I got married, and that became the demise of the car, which ended up being sold a couple of years later. It didn't fit in with the marriage. I sold it to a guy called Pat McMillan, who was a manager of the Dugout Club in Park Row. And 7 days after he bought it, he managed to wrap it round a lamppost, and I've got a photograph here of it wrapped around the lamppost. And it ended up going back to John Chatham and to be repaired. I don't know exactly what happened at that point, but I know that there was a bit of a falling out between Pat McMillan and John Chatham, which ended up with Pat McMillan removing the car off John Chatham's drive in the middle of the night, which is quite extraordinary. Pat then sold the car to a guy called John Northwood, who had the car restored. He was from Bristol. John, some few years later, then moved to America, to California, and took the car with him. So the car then was in California for something like 17 to 18 years. And I bumped into John and his friend at a race meeting at Castle Combe about 4 years ago. And he knew that I originally owned the car, and we had a chat about it, and he came down here to my house, and he saw a painting I had of the car, which was done in period by a friend of mine at work, which I've got here, and also a photograph of the car when it was originally damaged. He showed me a book, which I've also got here, where it's mentioned in the book as a Rud Speed version of the car, and we kept in touch. And a couple of years later, he said, "Look, I'm going to sell the car. Would you like to buy it?" So I said yes. And after a lengthy negotiations with the import people, we managed to get the car re-imported into the UK as is personal effects, even though it had been in the US for 17 years. So I managed to get it back with no duty. It took quite some time with the DVLA to get them to re-register it with the original registration number, which I also checked out before I bought the car that it was still available. And there was a file on the car, but it went through a pantomime of toing and froing of applications to eventually get the car put back to its original registration number, which is 96 FYY. The car arrived back in the UK, and I picked it up from Felixstowe and brought it back to Bristol. Sadly, it had been a victim of some American coating of fillers by about half an inch over the whole car. It was absolutely horrendous. So we decided to strip the car back to its bare metal, which we did. We had to replace the A posts and the B posts in it, but apart from that, it was actually very good condition. And we resprayed it and put it back to as it was. But interestingly, when I first built the car back in the late 60s, early 70s, it had no upholstery in it, just remnants of a bit of upholstery. So I actually did the upholstery at the time on my mum's Singer sewing machine in her lounge with the old, not an electric one, a hand pedal one, and that's still in the car now. So that's actually got the seats have been recovered since then, but the original upholstery which I did is still in the car, the dashboard and all the back. So it's got a lot of fond memories for the car. So that's basically where we are, and now it's back in going condition. It spent some time with John Chatham recently in order to get his upholsterer to put a new hood on it, which has now been done. And I'm pleased to say that John didn't try and reclaim any money from when it was taken off his drive. So that's the story of the car.